So just to let the audience know, Ellouise is from Santo Domingo and she is a jeweler there. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm actually carrying a lot of my traditional way of hand making the beads. And I learned this since I was 5 years old. I started out stringing two beans that my mom handmade. And I got to experience a little bit of selling at a young age at the Palace of the Governor in Santa Fe. That was before the rules kicked in. And so it helped me to interact with customers, but it also helped me to inspire me more to getting into this kind of work.
Right.
And it made my parents happy. My dad especially still happy because even though I pursued being an optician and an EMT and a security guard, I was always drawn back to, wanting to create jewelry. But I didn't have the right equipment after I left my family's home when I was 19. I didn't have the right equipment. So when I had my daughter, that's when I started thinking, because I wasn't able to go back to work as a single parent, how can I raise this child? How can I pay my bills? So one day I went to my parents' shop and I started going through their scraps. And my dad's telling me, no, cut those big stones. You can be able to work with our stones. I said, no, that's yours. I just got to, look through this scrap. I'll be fine. So I started creating this chain link bracelet and earrings and a pendant that was called treasure bracelets, treasure jewelry. It had different colors of stones all inlaid together. And that took me a long ways. And I started, getting back into hishi bead making because I noticed that it was starting to be lost. And I felt so bad because you couldn't see that anymore. Everybody forgotten, and all the people that I looked up to were all elderlies. They weren't capable of hand making the beads anymore. And a lot of the families literally were throwing away their machineries at the dump because me and my dad would take the trash and we would pick up all the machineries. And I'd be so happy if I found something and my dad said, don't worry, just bring it, we'll fix it up. So I ended up learning how to fix my own machines, which I still do now because I have no male person in my life. So I had to learn how to fix all my machines by myself. So I also learned that part. And then that's when I said, you know what? I know it's a lot of work. I know it's a lot of painstaking. I know it's really harsh on your hands. It's tiring, but I'm going to go back to hand making my beads because we don't want to lose that, because our San Domingo Pueblo have been doing this since 6000 BC. And, that's where the most handmade jewelry was, in New Mexico. Everything that we wore in traditional were handmade beads. And we weren't supposed to sell the jewelry back then. It was for our ceremony. It was for our protection. But when we started getting electricity, gas, it was getting a little tougher on our people. So our people decided, well, we're going to have to start selling something to bring in the income to be able to survive because things are changing. So everybody got into jewelry business, and that was in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And I wish I was born in 68, but I wish I was already an artist back then, like really big artist, because there were a lot of collectors and there were a lot of people that appreciated the handmade stuff. And there are people that were still actually hand making everything. And that's very hard to come by because now beads are produced. So I want to be different. That's the reason why I started hand making all my beads, and I put signatures on everything. But since I was working with my parents and they're doing a lot of traditional work into it, I decided to do a little bit more contemporary, something you can wear with everyday clothes. You don't have to dress Southwest to wear it. So one of the pieces that I'm wearing is the piece that I created. So all the
Mm,
beads are all handmade, and then I carve my stone settings to match up the color of the beads because
mm,
turquoise come in various colors, so sometimes it's hard to match. So that's why I'm in the process of hand making the beads. If I see certain colors that will look good as a pendant or as an earring, I carve it all right there and then, and I put them aside. So once I do that, then I match up everything right at when I'm soldering. So
mm,
those are the things that go to my head. And not only that, when you see a stone, a turquoise like this, you start visualizing what you wanted it to be. You're already thinking ahead of yourself. I never draw out anything. It just all comes to mind. So I feel like I've always had this connection when I was a little girl with stones. Gives me good energy, but it also talks to me. It tells me
mm,
what it wants it to be. And I just love the feeling. But this is how it becomes natural. This is a stone that my father gave me when I was 13. I still
mm,
have it. It's one of the stones he got out of Kinmen. And he would tell me, see those lines and how chalky it looks? It's very brittle, so they have to stabilize it to hold the structures together so you'll be able to slice into it. And that's
mm,
one thing that changed. Back then, when my people from the village made beads, they had to be careful. So they created this handmade Dremel where you have to pump it. It's like a spool. So when you pump it, you also have to keep it wet. So because of the chalky, brittle
mhm,
turquoise, you
mhm,
have to hand drill it very slowly, and it takes time to drill it through. So sometimes to make one necklace, it probably took them over a month,
wow.
and everything was hand grinded on the stone. I remember I had seen my grandma when I was little. She would put a rubber, like a tire rubber pad on there, on her hand, and tape it with masking tape. And she would sit there and grind it on the stone, but she constantly wet the stone and she was grinding them and she was rolling them. But also before she rolled them on the stone, when it was cut into squares, she had to get a cutter, a nipper, to
Mm,
cut the edges of the square. This way it's a little bit easier for you to grind and maybe
mm,
a little bit more faster. But it takes time. But even though I still hand make my stuff, it still takes time. Even though the motor turns it for you, turns the wheel for you, it's a
mhm,
lot of things taking on your back, on your
mm,
shoulders, and on your
mhm,
arm, and on your fingers, holding the piano wire and pulling it upward. I try to use both sides,
mm,
but it's really still harsh. So grinding those beads takes time still, but at least you can, create more pieces.
right.
So, so those are the things that I noticed that when I started back into it, that it's gonna take time, but I love creating. So sometimes that time consuming doesn't even face me. Sometimes I don't realize how tired I am till I lay down and I'm ready to go to bed. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so tired. But when
Mm,
you're focused, all that energy is there, all that thinking process is there that it just doesn't face you. You just want to create. There's times I would just make notes. I will tape all my stones on the masking tape to make sure that that's what it's supposed to be. This is where it needs to go. So it takes a lot of concentration. And being that I work by myself, I also thought about, I'm getting older. I need to teach my kids. So now
mm,
I have a daughter and a son,
mhm,
and they're both helping me now. They're both helping me slice. They help me string the rough. because it's like a puzzle. You got to spread out all these beads on your table, and you pick them up one by one, but you start from big, medium to small. So I was kind of hard, on them, because they will end up putting little beads next to the big beads, and I would tell them, you're gonna have to take that off, follow this pattern. So I would draw it out and they will follow it. And now they're both pretty good, so they help me out a lot. So I hope they carry on this tradition, because with all the equipment that I have now, it took me 9 years to establish my whole shop. And it
Wow.
looks really nice in there. I have a section where I inlay. I have a section where I solder. I have a section where I grind just the beads, and a bigger slicer to cut the bigger stones. And then I have a medium size to cut, something with the 8-inch blade. And then I have another grinder where I do my own caps. Caps meaning the stones that you see on my earrings and the ones you see on here, and my inlay, to make it look nice and clean. So everything's set up, but I'm also a clean freak. So I'm very nice. I cannot work in a messy room. I make sure that everything's put out nicely, organized, know where things are at, so I can get to it really fast. So I'm very particular of how I have things around me, so I can do things right away. But I also challenge myself with stones. I work with jasper, which I cut and make into beads. It's a harder stone, but with the kind of equipment I have now, things are possible now. I also work with lapis, and I hand make my own beads too. I also look for stones that exist maybe back in the days, and some of them just kind of faded away because there's no mine for it. Some stones are only found. For instance, this color, it's called serpentine, yellow green serpentine, and this is what the stone looks like in the rock. So for years, I've been searching for this. And about maybe 11, 12 years ago, my dad came upon this color. And we both pitched in, and we bought whatever the gentleman found, but they're found on the surface. So these are the beads that were forgotten for a while because you couldn't get them. So when I came across this, I started working with it. But my father was the lucky person. He found a person that collected rocks and stones and made connection with my dad. And he ended up buying big chunks, and he tried it out, showed it to me. So I told him, Dad, I said, let's pitch in and get whatever he found. So these are called serpentine. Also, when I hand make my beads, I have a signature. You probably won't see it, but it's a brown ironwood. It's a family signature that we chose when we started being part of the Portal program. That's when they started coming up with the rules. We had to demonstrate everything from raw to finish. They come and watch you perform at your house. That you have to make every design that you make to prove that you're a legitimate person, that everything you do is handmade. Then when you qualify, they give you a card, but they also ask you what kind of signature you would like to use on your work. So we picked ironwood because you don't see it everywhere, and nobody's ever made it into beads. So we picked that because it was very rare, and it is. So I used to put my signature by the I part, which is where my parents and my brothers, sisters still use because they live together. And now that I went on my own, they asked me to put mines on the hook area. So that's how people can tell us apart, from my parents' signature, family signature, to my own signature. But I still use ironwood. It's only on the hook area. Also, there's another stone that I want to show you that took a while to find again. This is called frog green serpentine. And it's a really beautiful forest green color, and I love forest green. But just about 4 years ago, I came across a gentleman at a gas station in a little red car, and he was from down south. And he came up to me and he asked me where I was from. So I told him, and he goes, "Do you do jewelry?" I said, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "I have some stones in the car that I want to sell, but I don't know how to get in the village, or I don't know how to go about." I said, "Show me what you have." And he had like buckets of serpentine in his car. And I said, "Oh my God." I said, "You don't know how long I'd be looking for this frog green serpentine. You can't find it no more because a lot of people are using it as countertops now." Really beautiful color. It's very shiny. So these are hard to come across. So I only have a few more pieces left, but I'd be making jewelry again in this color. And if you notice, it looks good with purples, white, turquoise. It even looks good with red too. And if you notice the colors of inlay that I do, I was an optician. So one thing that I loved working with people is their features, color skin, color of their hair, their shape of their face. I never realized that it was interwoven into the designs I do. But I look at people, especially now when I sit at the portal, the colors they wear, their features. So when I get home and I start creating, I start picturing all the people I saw that day, what colors complemented them, and that's what I go off with. So it's like painting, but I get it from people of the colors they wear or how their features are. So that's how I create. Also, there's materials here. Some can be easily worked with. Some can be hard to work with. Some are really hard to inlay with because it's concave, which are the shells, and they're hard to make beads too. So I had so much challenges through all the stuff that I work with. Also, the most messiest pieces are black jet and pipe stove. These really color up the water so bad where you can't see where you're slicing. So I use my finger as my guidance. If you notice, I have no nails. But I'm used to it because being an optician, you couldn't have long nails. Being an EMT, you couldn't have long nails. So I'm used to it. But these two colors you can't see, so my fingers are my guidance because it's the most easiest stone to work with. Not only that, it's really hard to polish. This is one of my pieces that I did. I did the moon star design with a little bit of inlay. And then I made this to where it reverses.
That's cool.
Black jet and black jet beads with Cayman turquoise. And if you notice on a lot of my work too, I also had make my own hook and eyes. So I created to where the women don't have to ask their men to clasp it for them. And then I put adjusters on the end. So it's easier for them to clasp on and take it off. It's also shaped to where it doesn't scratch the back of their neck or get caught onto their scarves or their hair, you know, when they're wearing the piece. So those are the things I look at to make things comfortable for women, because I wear a lot of jewelry myself too. So if I'm not comfortable with certain piece that, you know, I may have bought in the past, or I may have created something new, I'll try it on myself. It doesn't feel good, I will not allow it to be sold to any customer. I got to make sure that it's very well built and very comfortable to wear. So those are the things that I look at when I'm putting pieces together. Also, if you notice on my earring,
Mm.
I do a lot of earrings. I do clip-ons, posts, and dangles. Up here on the top, you'll see like a silver ball. I
Mm-hmm.
do them in apple coral, turquoise, and plain silver. This is
Mm.
called the earring enhancer. And what the
Mm.
earring enhancer does, because it all started when my good friend Deborah Marco in Arizona. She's a tall lady, blonde hair. She's part Oklahoma. And she likes big earrings because she's tall. And she tells me, well, Elouise, I'm going to have to give you all my earrings. I said, why? Those are your collection. I don't want to just take that from you. She goes, well, because my earlobes are stretching and I
Mm.
can't wear dangles anymore. I'm getting older and it's just pulling on it and it doesn't hang right. And I
Mm.
said, you know what, Deborah? Keep the earrings. Let me see what I can create for you to be able to wear those earrings still. She goes, really? I said, yes. So
Mm.
keep them. And if it doesn't work, then you can give them to me. Is that a deal? She goes, yes. So I came home. I couldn't stop thinking about her, what she said. So I created this earring enhancer. It's got a little hook in the front with a little ball so you can be able to grab it with your fingertips, open it up, and pull out your earring.
Mm.
So
Wow.
here's this little dangle.
Yeah.
And I soldered the jump ring close to the edge so you'll be able to put it back through the little ball, close it back up, make sure it's secure. You're done. So you
Wow.
can do any dangle earring on this earring enhancer. Either you can have my earrings on there or even earrings you had in the past. And so enhances the look, but it also keeps your earlobes from stretching. So
Mm.
you can wear the biggest earring and this will help it lift it up and keep it stable. So
Wow.
those so those are the things that I listen to all my customers, especially females, what they're complaining about, or what if it was like this? What if this was like that? What if this was this color? So whatever
Mm.
the comments that I get from my customers, I go home and I sit down and I say, where can I do better? Where can I help these women to make things happen? So
Mm.
I sit down and I start creating. So that's why I call myself Elouise Originals, because anything I create is an original thing that came to my mind and I made it happen.
So it sounds like you have this rich heritage, but you're so innovative. Like that's a big deal for women my age to be able to wear danglies that aren't off because of the earlobe. So that's pretty cool.
Yes, yes. Because I feel that jewelry brings out the inner beauty.
Mm.
Everything we do for ourselves, it makes us feel good. It makes our soul feel good. So
Mm.
my dad always told me, if you're going to get back into jewelry, just know this. This is the reason why we make jewelry. So he would tell me a long story. And it was so this good feeling of why jewelry is the way it is. It brings out the inner beauty because of the energy of the stones that was created by Mother Nature. And
Mm.
what we're here to do is to create those pieces, put it on people so they
Mhm.
feel good about themselves, especially their inner soul. So it
Right.
brings out beauty from the inside, but also the beauty around the the person, the good aura. So that's
Right.
why I really got into jewelry. I wanted to give that back to people
Mm.
to be healed by everything they wear is a healing stone. So
Mm.
if you notice this bracelet,
Mm.
it's inlaid with all different colors all the way to an agate because every little stone is a healing stone. So once
Mm.
it is inlaid, I feel it's time consuming. It's a lot of work into it, but it has all the good energies that you want in your life all put into one piece. So
Mm,
that's why I like to do a lot of inlays too on my pieces.
that's
Yes.
beautiful. So,
Thank
Eloise, if we have people who want to look at your work, what is your website?
It's called you can Google me,
Oh,
and I
okay.
also will pop up on the Pinterest too. But just Google Eloise Originals and it'll
Okay.
take you straight to my website. Plus, you can get on my Facebook. Facebook will tell you little stories about where I'm at, what I'm doing. It'll show you a little bit of my work. And when you buy a piece, you'll also get this brochure. It has a picture of me. It has a story about me
Mm,
and awards that I've gotten. And you can see all the names of the stones, and we'll mark those out for you. And also, I have a little bit of pictures of my work.
mhm,
And if you go to the back, it's a picture of my parents, who I'm
mm,
very
mm,
grateful to. Had they not been hardcore on me and my brothers and sisters, I won't be where I'm at today. I
mm,
felt like a Cinderella because I had to cook at a young age, at age 10. I took care of my siblings. I cleaned the house, cleaned out the cars. But now when I look back, I'm grateful that I was brought up that way because my house is clean, my cars are clean, and I can cook. I do
mm,
everything they taught me, and I'm grateful. Also, you'll also receive this. It's a story about my ancestors. It's a story about
mm,
my family, how I grew up. And then it also tells you about the Palace of the Governor. And it also tells you about Swaya. So it has
mm.
all the info on there. So these are the two things that you get with your pieces
That's
because
awesome.
it's the authenticity of my work that you're getting. And
That's
that's
awesome.
what you're gonna have. You'll also see, if you notice, I can't, some people can't afford diamonds. So for
Mm,
Christmas, I create stuff with CZs. And these are just fun things. So you'll
mm,
also see a little bit of pieces on my website during Christmas where I create bling blings. And a lot of women love that. I do
yeah.
a private show at the Intel, and even the men love it. They like to buy things bling bling because the women can wear it for Christmas or New Year's. So I do fun things, but I also take orders from people. Like I had women that called me and asked me to create um, wedding jewelry where they
Mm,
are reversible, where one side is bling bling, the other side is very traditional.
mhm,
So I create stuff for them to wear for their weddings. So I
mm.
do customized jewelry too.
Thank you so much. I love the story about your dad and love the story about the stones, and it was just amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me too. And have
yeah,
a wonderful new year.
you too. Thank you so much, Eloise. Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. You also.